So during the COVID-19 pandemic, we have been using video conferencing, video calls all of the time, whether it's Skype or Teams or Zoom, work, school, or our personal lives, we are on it much more than we ever used to be. And while I think we all are hoping that down the line we won't be using them quite so often and doing some more things in person together again, it is still a powerful tool, and I believe we will continue to use them, perhaps more than we did previously, because of that. And so I want to talk about just a couple of things surrounding mental illness and using these video calls in your classroom. So the first thing is why we might want to continue to use them even after the pandemic. And one of the big reasons, there are a few reasons why some students might not be able to attend an in-person classroom at a given time if they have mental illness. So one reason might be that, for a wide range of mental illness diagnoses, one of the symptoms is just exhaustion. And the idea of walking to a dorm room, or if they're commuting, driving in, or taking public transportation and then walking over, that could seem, like a 26-mile marathon to a student with really acute symptoms. So they can instead, just turn on a computer and be able to be in the classroom. Also, students with ADHD or autism might find sometimes the classroom experience to be distracting. Students with PTSD or some sort of anxiety diagnosis might find being in a classroom anxiety provoking sometimes. So by being able to use video calls, you are able to open the door and allow students who maybe would have skipped that class, that student who couldn't get out of bed and walk over, but they could turn their camera on and be able to participate in a classroom. You're making it more inclusive. And I'm talking specifically about mental illness, but this would help your students, if they have a physically chronic illness, or if, they just have a reason that they can't make it into campus, into a classroom on that given day. So there are lots of reasons why this could be a really powerful tool of inclusivity. The thing to bear in mind about using this tool, I hear a lot of debate about, cameras on, cameras off, and I do think that there are pros and cons to both. I know instructors are concerned about the engagement level for their students, or that their students are distracted and not paying attention if their cameras are off. But I would encourage, but I think the conversation is more nuanced than that. And it's important to set expectations for your students about what are the expectations, what is the etiquette in a classroom. But I would encourage that to be a shared collaborative discussion. And in that first classroom, work on setting those expectations, what are those etiquettes together. If you're teaching in higher ed, you're working with adults, so allowing them to be part of the discussion and a part of what is their learning experience going to be also helps, engage them and get them a little bit more invested in what is happening. And you can do this also in K through 12, particularly with the older students. But from another aspect, there are reasons why students might not want to have their cameras on. And if we're talking specifically from a mental illness lens, we talked about some of the reasons that we talked about in a classroom, they could still hold true for students with a video call. So your student with autism or ADHD still could find things about a video call distracting. Students with anxiety or PTSD could still find having their cameras on to be anxiety provoking. Also, students, if they are having those exhaustion symptoms from a variety of mental illnesses, but things like depression, they might not be taking good care of themselves or their surroundings. So they might not have been cleaning themselves or their rooms thoroughly enough, and so it might be a source of embarrassment or discomfort for them to have to share their cameras and share what their spaces or what they look like. And again, just like with allowing your students to be able to attend a classroom anywhere. There are other reasons outside of mental illness that someone might not want to turn their cameras on as well. So it's, again, you are using universal design learning principles for a specific diagnosis or for a specific group of diagnoses, but you are ultimately making the experience positive for your students overall. So these are just some reasons why video calls can really help you design courses that incorporate more practices of universal design learning, and also about designing your courses with your students' mental illness and mental health in mind.